all. Swami said 2 boys did something wrong, but the rest of them are learning not to do it.
Okay.
Doesn't that open an avenue of possibility? I thought about that. I thought, how wonderful. Now, how can we use that in our household? I don't know about you, but I had 4 kids. And they'd be in the other room, and the next thing you know, somebody'd be screaming or fighting. And then they'd come in and say, he did it, she did it, he did it, she did it. I mean, he and she, all of a sudden, I had to be a detective. I had to try and find out who was right, okay? Then I had to be the judge that sentenced the kid and the jury. And then when they're 40 years old, they're coming back and telling me, you remember, Mom, when somebody pulled the chair over and stuck their hand in the cake, you punished me and it was really this kid? Right? So I figured this. If my kids are fighting in the other room and they come in and they say this, punish them both. Both of you get this punishment, whatever it is that you decide. Both of you go do this. And the one that did it, all right, and the one that didn't do it is going to get pressure from the one that didn't do it not to do it again. It's going to be peer pressure in reverse. Because can you imagine what those 50 students or 80 students that weren't going in Swami's house did to the 2 that got him in trouble? Huh? You can never figure out which kid did what when they're fighting and arguing and you're not there and didn't see it. Unless you're Swami. I didn't have that kind of vision. I tried to let my kids think I did.
How about the cigarette?
Oh, Swami. One boy came in, Swami said, he said, "You been smoking?" "Oh, no, Swami, I'm not smoking." "You've been smoking." "No, Swami, no, Swami." Swami goes like this, materializes a picture of the boy out in the village smoking a cigarette and hands it to him and says, "You've been smoking." Now, if we had that power, just think what we could do with it. Wouldn't it be wonderful? My daughter, especially the youngest one, she knew I was a little psychic and also a little crazy. But somehow or another, Swami would always, one way or the other, let me know when my kids got in trouble if they didn't. So the youngest one was never quite sure if Swami was telling me inside what was going on or not. You got to try to keep them always in suspicion. We can't let all our secrets out. But it's so important for you to give your children an action. If your child doesn't do a job that you've asked them to do, and they expect you to take them to dancing or soccer or whatever on Saturday, you sit down and read the newspaper or ignore it. And then when they're ready, they'll come and say to you, "Why aren't you taking me to soccer practice, Dad?" Just like Swami, when we're finally ready to ask inside, "Why are you ignoring me, Lord?" Then they may be ready to listen. But they're not ready to listen when you're dumping verbiage on them. We're spoiling our children so bad it's pathetic. Swami says they're out of control. Spoiling, spoiling, spoiling. And I'm not going to talk anymore, but I'll talk more about this tonight. But think about it. Be creative. Be creative as a center. Some night at Study Circle, just have a brainstorming session on how you can show your kids actions instead of giving them words when they're doing something you don't want them to do. That's what this exercise is all about. And that's what they're trying to get across in America today. Because the children, through permissiveness in the last 50 years, have lost discipline and lost their way, they're not listening to the parents. They're trying to get people to start thinking, what kind of an action can I do that will allow my child to think about what he or she has done? Good idea?
Yes.
Huh?
Yeah. Swami, one time, go ahead. Yeah.
I totally agree with you. But then if you don't communicate with them, suppose, I'll give you an example. If your child comes back at home, say 12 midnight, you don't say anything to him on the first day. Second day, he does the same thing. Third day, he does the same thing. You are sitting in a corner and reading a paper happily. And he'll think to himself, well, my parents don't bother about me. Next time he'll start coming at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Wait a minute. Most of the kids know when they leave the house that they're supposed to be home at 12 o'clock. These are situations that you've already communicated to your kids. In other words, if I say to my child, now look, I want you to be home at 12 midnight, okay? And the child knows that that's the deadline. Oh, I've already explained it. How many times have you explained to your kids to pick up their room? How many times have you told them to empty the garbage? How many times have you told them to turn off the TV and the homework? Huh? How many times? Many times. By the time they're teenagers, they ought to know the house rules. And we're going to cover these house rules in that contract. And that's a great question you brought up. Because first we have to explain. But we don't have to explain 395 times. Or 352 times a year. Every day we keep explaining and it ain't working. They must, and this is where we got in trouble in America. It was so big in the last 30, 40 years. You must communicate with your child. You must explain so they understand. So everything became explain, explain, explain. Everybody explained, but nobody disciplined. Nobody went back to check the consequences of what they were doing. And the children simply aren't listening, but it is first love to explain, just like you said. Then, wait till you see the lovely tool we got if the child, after you explain, doesn't come back. You're going to get that a little bit tonight, but we're going to have that exercise tomorrow.
Let me just say one thing. Swami went to Madras, and they did certain things in Madras and took Swami several different places. They never asked Swami if he wanted to go there, to this place, this place, this place. Swami did not go back in 3 years to Madras. So the man in charge in the house one night was almost in tears pleading with Swami. Swami, we were wrong, Swami, not to ask if you wanted to go there. We thought we could tell you and do what we wanted to do. Please forgive us, Swami. Please forgive us. Come back to Madras, Swami. Do you see what action he did? He didn't say, no, I'm not going to this function, or I'm not going to this function. He just sat back. They didn't ask, but they took him, and he let them do that.